Well, I'm not even going to joke about this anymore. You all know the score. Brian Laudrup doesn't rate the squad that I've got, but I'm not even going to joke. This season was... a heartbreak is an understatement. First of all, let's take a look at the league position. Of course, Brian Laudrup doesn't believe we can meet our expectations, but see, every time I start another season on the save, I always think, is this the year I'm going to, finish worse off with regards to league position or points tally? But I just keep on improving. And I came within 1 point, 1 point and 4 goals of the league title. It went down to the last game of the season. Which I played just moments ago. We needed Aberdeen to draw or lose to Celtic, and unfortunately they won. We beat Cali, but it was irrelevant because they went and won the title. It was just utter heartbreak. I look at how far, we're 8 points clear of Celtic, 11 ahead of Rangers, and we finished in a Champions League qualification spot, as you can see here. Top 2 teams qualify for the Euro Champions Cup, or the Champions League, or European Cup, or whatever you want to call it. It's quite funny, actually, because the coefficient of the Scottish leagues at the minute in the game is very, very strong. As you can see, we're 8th, therefore 2 teams go to the European Cup, 4 going to the UEFA Cup, and 2 going to the Eurovaz or Intertoto Cup, which means also the winners of the Scottish Cup, they would go in as well. But as you can see, the Scottish Cup was won by Aberdeen, who did the double. But the point is, they won that, which means the qualification for European football goes to the league table. If we go back to the league here, top 2 teams, Aberdeen and St Johnstone, go into the Champions League, and then the next 4 teams go into the UEFA Cup. So Celtic, Rangers, Cali and Dunfermline, they all get into the UEFA Cup, which means I think Livingston and Hearts, even though they finished in the bottom half of the table, they get into the Eurovaz Intertoto Cup, which means 3/4 of the league qualifies for Europe. That is just incredible. In a time when we could have finished as low as 8th and still got into Europe, we ended up finishing 2nd and getting into the Champions League, which is quite fantastic. But as you can see, we were so close to the title. 3 points better off than last year, 1 place better off than last year. And it's the same top 4 as last year. It's quite a strong top 4. As you can see, there's another 14-point gap. There was an 11-point gap last season, a 14-point gap this time. Also, Dunfermline didn't finish 7th. After finishing 7th for 3 years in a row, they finished 6th finally, so they got to the top 6, well done to them. And Partick Thistle, the team that came up, got relegated. So that usually happens, it seems. The team that comes up gets relegated. And Motherwell, a team that started the game in the top league, won promotion at a canter. Yeah, it's just really boring, the teams around about. Nothing really happens. It's all happening at the top end of the table. So anyway, that was how we did in the league. We'll get onto the other competitions, because of course I was in Europe. I had the League Cup. Could I get past the 3rd round for the first time? We'll get onto that in a minute. Let's just, deal with the squad. So, we are at a bit of a crossroads. I know I spoke about team dynamics in a previous video on this save. We're at another bit of a crossroads, because what's happening is I've got a lot of players out of contract. That's like half a dozen players out of contract. Some of them don't want to renew their contract. It may end up that they do renew their contracts, like Jason Scotland did at the last minute, at the 11th hour as it were, but it might not. Also, there's a good many players that are not really wanting to stay at the club. People like Sean Thornton, Andrew Davies, this Jacob guy, even Ross Forsyth is not really wanting to stay, so it's a bit of a downer in the whole season. The thing is, it's such a good squad in my view, even if Brian Laudrup doesn't think so. We just missed out on the league title. I think the squad was good enough to win the league. I mean, clearly, I think we were good enough to win the league, even if we didn't win the league. I'm glad the squad at least got close to winning the league. Last season we were 10 points behind Celtic, who won the league. Thankfully we improved a lot this season. But the point is, I might get rid of a lot of this squad. I might just let a lot of them leave. The wage bill, if you want to have a look at the finances here, the wage bill is, let's go to salary, yeah, £6,372 over the budget. So that's not so good. That's limiting the players I can bring in. Therefore, it might be an idea for me to sell on some of these players. Although, obviously, if I do get rid of some of these players, I may not be able to get in players that are as good as them. Going forward, the team might look very different next season. There was only one transfer. I was going to not make any transfers whatsoever, because I couldn't really get anyone in. I can't remember why. I think it was to do with the wage demands. The players of the calibre I wanted to bring in didn't want to come, if you know what I mean. Now we're in the Champions League, we might be able to attract higher quality players. But the thing is, if you don't know how the leagues system and the reputation system works, basically the reputation of the leagues remains fixed in this version of the game and every version of the game up until 2010. So the Premier League, the Scottish Premier League, will always be less reputable than the English Premier Division, whereas in the modern versions the reputation of leagues and competitions change in that. So if you play the game a long time in those versions, it might come to the point where the Scottish Premier League is quote unquote the best league in the world. However, in this version, the Italian league, the Spanish league, the English leagues, those sorts of leagues, they're always going to be a lot higher. Even if I won the Champions League 10 years in a row, even if I won the Scottish Premier League 10 years in a row, there would still be players up in my squad that would want to move to, Spain, England, Italy, that sort of a thing. That's one of the downsides of playing as a Scottish team or a team of a lot of other nations in this version, but I mean, what can you do? We'll see what we can do, but the squad might look vastly different. As I was saying though, I didn't want to change the squad too much because I wasn't going to be able to get in players that were going to be suitable enough to improve the squad more than it was, because it's already a good squad. Close to deadline day, I spent 1 million on Martin Klein. He's a decent defender. He did really well for us. I'm pretty glad I got him in. His mentals are really good and he's at the peak of his career at the minute. Signed him up for 5 years. He was pretty much ever present this season, so I was really glad I got him. That's the highest fee I've paid for a player and I don't regret it. We did let a few players leave. These are mainly youth players, although Ben Burgess, I see he got a club. He went to Sheffield United in the English Championship. I let him go because I didn't think he would get much game time. Yeah, let's have a look at the team, the squad. I did promote 1 or 2 youth players, which I'll speak about in a minute, but this is my squad. First thing you will notice, let's have a look at appearances. First thing you'll notice is Alan Gow never played at all this season, and Aaron Lennon only played 3 times this season. And Alan Mannis, well, he did play 12 times, but basically those 3 players, Alan Gow, Aaron Lennon, oh look, there's a pattern. They all begin with A. No, I don't think that's the reason, but basically they all had long-term injuries throughout the season. So if you have a look at Alan Gow, he had a knee injury for 9 months. That pretty much ruled him out for the entire season. Aaron Lennon played a few games at the start, but then he's had a couple of injuries lately, but then he had a damaged spine. And he was out for 8 months. He seems to be quite injury prone. And then Alan Mannis, I think he had a broken pelvis or something like that, which sounds very sore. Groin injury. It says groin injury. I guess it said broken pelvis. It says groin injury, whatever, but it was 6 months he was out for. So although he was present for maybe the first few months of the season, I was missing him and the other 2 players that I just mentioned. I was missing them for the vast majority of the season. And that really didn't help us. Alan Gow was a key member of the team in the last few years. Aaron Lennon was really good last season. Alan Mannis was my number 1. So those are 3 key players. We also had a lot of other injury problems throughout the season. There was times when I didn't have many options really. Even though we've got a big squad, I didn't have many options, which really limited us. Very challenging with regards to squad management. That on top of the fact that we had loads and loads of games. Ross Forsyth played 48 games. If we go down to Georgios Constanti, he played 8 games it looks like, which means we probably had somewhere in the region of 56 games I would estimate. 56 games sounds about right. So it was a very, very, very long season. I think that's the most games I've ever played. You'll see why in a minute. You can see here Ross Forsyth, he's unhappy, he wants to go, but he did play 48 games this season. Believe it or not, he actually, let's go down to, where is it, St Johnstone records. Yeah, here we go. The 252 league appearances made by Forsyth in his St Johnstone career is a new record. So, he broke the record for the all-time league appearances. You can see him here. There he is, most league appearances for the club, Ross Forsyth. Basically at the start of the season, was counting up his appearances to see how many he had, because this is his 10th year, I think, actually, at the club. We should give him a testimonial. That'd be quite nice. Not that you get testimonials officially in this version of the game, or any version, I don't think. But anyway, I was counting up his appearances and realised he was 30 league appearances off the record, which was held by a real life player at the time called Roddy Grant. He had 251. So what I did was I just basically played him every single league game this season, or most league games of the season, and I managed to get him the record. I'm quite happy about that. I didn't sign him, but he's one of my players. So that was one record there. That was pretty good. As you can see, the other appearance holders. Well, let's have a look at average rating. Average rating, Jason Scotland at the top. As you can see, 40 goals. He did really well. He's 32 now, but he's still scoring a lot of goals. 7 assists, 10 man of the match awards. He's just such a phenomenal player. So yeah, 40 goals, 7 assists, good season. Sean Thornton did well. 8 goals, 8 assists, 5 man of the match awards. He wants to leave. He wants to move to a bigger club, which is a bit unfortunate. I might try and hold on to him. I might sell him. It really just depends. Zoltan Kiss is still here. Believe it or not, someone actually made a bid for him in January, which I rejected because I thought you should just offer a contract to him. I'm not sure if you're aware, but he's not actually contracted to my club. They never came back for him. I can't remember who it was. But yeah, he's still here. 43 games, 5 goals, 22 assists. He had a pretty solid season. 7.49 average rating. Aaron Lennon has a 7.33 because he did well at the start of the season and then disappeared. This guy here, our Algerian midfielder, he's injured at the minute, but he played 30 games, 7.29 average rating. He was actually unhappy, but I think he's happy again. I'm not sure. Nielsen, he wants to go. His contract's going to be up and he doesn't want to renew it, unfortunately, but he did pretty well. 3 goals, 6 assists. Michael Stewart, now he was ever present at the start of the season in the defensive midfield role, but then I think he got injured or suspended. Basically, I switched him out for someone else, Kirk Broadfoot, I think. He just didn't really play in the latter part of the season, although he did play in the last few games because of injuries. But yeah, he got 7.29, did pretty well. Chris Burke, he played 10 games and actually got a good rating, so he'll still be here next season. Ross Wallace played more than he did last season. He got 5 goals. How many assists did he get, actually? 14 assists. I think that was a new record, actually. I see it was actually Zoltan Kiss this season who had 22 assists. That was a new record. 22 assists, that's not bad. Andrew Davies, Dooley Johnson. Dooley Johnson did well. 16 goals this season, 2 assists. 2 Man of the Match awards. I'm really happy he got into double figures. He's proven that he can score goals at important times, which is good. Martin Klein, the new signing, he got 7.11. Phil Cave played a dozen games or so. Willie McLaren, 20 starts, 20 sub appearances. He played a lot at the start of the season, but then I preferred Ross Wallace because he was doing well. He was on form. Willie McLaren didn't play an awful lot in the latter part of the season. Ross Forsyth actually got a low average rating. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it was because he was unhappy that his appearances or his performances dwindled or declined, but he played 48 games, most games of this season, which was pretty good. And everyone else was really just a backup player. A few players I want to mention. I promoted Richard Kingsley, who is a Welsh international, a Welsh under-21 international. I signed him, if you remember, last season from Connah's Quay, a Welsh side. And he was my backup keeper. I actually played him in a UEFA Cup game by accident. I forgot. I thought I'd put him as the first substitute, but I'd accidentally put him as the goalkeeper. Don't ask how I can do that. I'm daft like that. So he got his first start there. I ended up substituting him in that game because I was too scared. Craig Young, our young centre forward, he's actually declining. That's not good. He scored a goal this season. He got one start. He played mainly off the bench. I'm not sure if he'll still be around. Michael Mitchell. Now this is an interesting one. He is one of my own players. He got 3 goals, 1 assist this season, so I might keep him around. As you can see, he came through our academy. That was good, and so I promoted him from the youth team and gave him a few starts. Scott Wilson, he's still around. I wasn't sure if I was going to keep him, but before I signed Martin Klein, I thought, I really need another centre back because the current centre backs I had, some of them weren't good at jumping, whereas Scott Wilson was before he started declining. So I offered him a new contract, a new 1-year extension, and then I signed Klein. So now I had more centre forwards and I knew what centre backs I should say than I knew what to do with. So that's the squad. A very, very strong squad, very exciting squad. It was just a shame 3 of the players missed out, and this squad will probably no longer exist next season. I'll be stunned if it does, and I'm probably going to get rid of a few of the players anyway, just because they're either not good enough or they're not going to feature. I should also give a special mention to Graham Smith. He was second choice keeper coming into this season. He actually, his first few games of the season didn't go well at all, and when Alan Manis got injured, I was really, really worried that things were just going to capitulate. So I actually signed a player on trial, Paddy Kenny, who ended up signing for Premiership side Sunderland. He kept 1 clean sheet, 3 appearances, so he did alright, but then I realised I couldn't just keep signing keepers on trial, so I played Graham Smith. He did really well. 18 clean sheets, says it all really. He only conceded 36 goals in 40 games if you count the 1 substitute appearance, so that was really impressive. 6.9. He got 2 Man of the Match awards, but he kept us in a lot of games, so he was definitely a good player. He would be my vote for player of the season, I reckon. Let's have a look at another couple of records that we made. As you can see here, second in the Premier League was a record new high, but we also made a Premier League record. As you can see, we went 20 games without losing from New Year's Day to the end of the season, so we could actually extend this run into next season if we don't lose. But of all the Premiership teams, the Scottish Premier League teams, we went the longest without losing, so I was very, very happy with that. And I see Zoltan Kiss has the most assists in the league. That's pretty cool. Oh yeah, and we need to do the whole yellow card, red card thing. 4th. Okay, we didn't finish that high. Aberdeen finished top, but then they finished top of the league, so I'm guessing they're not too bothered. And we finished quite low down with regards to red cards, so that's pretty good. Now let's have a look at the tactics. Again, I mainly used the 4-5-1. It seemed to work really, really well. I used this formation actually quite a bit. This 4-1-4-1, it just basically pulls the wingers back into a more wide midfield role. It's more defensively solid, so I'd use that if I was protecting a lead, and I used it quite a bit. Did it work? Not always, but most of the time it worked, which was the main thing. And this was the last starting 11 I had for the Kelly Thistle game. My starting 11s did change a lot, like for example, Stephen Brennan often played right back. This was the most common centre-back pairing. Ross Forsyth mainly played left back. Defensive midfield was either Kirk Broadfoot, this guy here, or Michael Stewart. Centre midfield again, could be anyone from Sean Thornton, Nielsen, even Ryan Stevenson got quite a few starts. How many starts did he get? He wants to leave as well, which is a bit of a shame. He got 9 starts, 18 substitute appearances. Yeah, he was mainly a sub, but yeah, he wants to leave because he wants a new challenge. It's a bit of a shame because Ross Forsyth and Ryan Stevenson, I think, are the only 2 players left in the team that were there at the start of the game, if you know what I mean. So look at that, 0405, 0405. So they're both the only 2 players still in the squad that were there at the start of the game, but they both want to leave. Ryan Stevenson's contract's up, so he'll probably be leaving. Ross Forsyth, for some reason, wanted a new contract, so I gave him a new 5-year deal. So he's still going to be here for 4 years unless I sell him. I might just end up selling him and trying to get a new left back. I don't know. He actually gave away quite a few penalties this year, which, who knows, could have costed us. I chopped and changed tactics a lot. But for the last half of the season, I just basically used this at the start of every single game. It was just the one that I relied on. We had such a good run, so many good performances using this. I just thought, it works, why change it? So yeah, and Jason Scotland was obviously the main striker. Zoltan Kiss mainly played down the right, and Ross Wallace mainly played down the left, and if it wasn't him, it was Willie McLaren. Before we have a look at games, actually, let's have a look at the awards. I'll give you one guess who won the Players' Player of the Year. And it was, Jason Scotland, again. And Zoltan Kiss came second. He came second before, I'm pretty sure, but that's the 3rd year in a row Jason Scotland's won the Player of the Year award, which is quite frankly incredible. None of our players won Young Player of the Year. Team of the Year, we had a few players there. It might look like 4 of my midfielders got it, but Stephen Hughes is for Rangers, so only 3 of my midfielders, but that's still pretty cool. And of course Jason Scotland up front, and that's partly because he won top goal scorer, 30 league goals, he got 40 in total, so that's pretty impressive. He didn't start as well as he did last year, because last year he had about 18 or 20 by October, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many you score at the start, as long as you score a lot over the season. 40 is impressive. That's the 4th time he's won it in the last 5 years. Manager of the Year, I came second. Aberdeen's manager, Jimmy Calderwood, won it. I can kind of see why, because he won the league. But I feel like a case could have been made for myself. But whatever. Jason Scotland also won the Writers' Player of the Year. And he won the goal of the season, which I'll just show off now against Kelly Thistle. Actually, it was the Kelly Thistle goal on the last day of the season. So there you go, enjoy it. Shall we have a look at Goal of the Month? I wasn't really going to do Goal of the Month. Okay, 2 of my players won Goal of the Month. We'll just show you the winners. We won't show you second or third. So, December, Jason Scotland won Goal of the Month for striking against Kelly Thistle. I'll just show that now. And then if we move up a bit, April, Dooley Johnson won Goal of the Month for a goal against Kilmarnock. So that was pretty good. And that was 2 of our players that got Goal of the Month. And as for other awards, Player of the Month, Ross Wallace and Jason Scotland won in March and April at our peak time when we were winning a lot. Mirror Manager of the Month, I won twice, January and March. That was the awards. Let's move on to the games. So how did we do? So first of all, it's pre-season. Pretty average at points. We drew 0-0 with Preston, drew 1-1 with Sheffield United. We then beat Cambridge 1-0. Then the best result of pre-season was a 2-0 win over Bayern Munich. I might as well show this game because it's pretty impressive if you ask me. And they actually started with a good team. Jason Scotland scored in 9 minutes. Dooley Johnson scored on 78 minutes. So there we go. That was our 2-0 pre-season friendly win over Bayern Munich, but still kind of impressive. 0-0 draw with Sheffield Wednesday, so we'd drawn with both the Sheffield teams. They're decent teams, they're both championship level teams, so nothing to be sneered at. Also, Preston were a Premiership team, we managed to draw with them, although they did finish bottom of the Premiership, so whatever. Anyway, start of the season. As we go through this, I'm going to go a lot, because there are points where I feel like we could have won, we should have won, or we should have drawn, and if we had, we would have won the league. Simple as that. This was one of these games, what can I say, penalty, we battered them, well we didn't batter them, but we could have at least equalised. But yeah, Hibs, we usually do well against Hibs, but we lost to them there. 1-0 loss to Hibs to start the season off, but it was into the UEFA Cup. First game in the UEFA Cup. We were in the second qualifying round. First leg against Željezničar, Bosnian team. I did butcher that, I do apologise. This is how the scoring went. Zoltan Kiss netted on 12 minutes before Jason Scotland added a penalty to double our advantage. This was the away leg now, so that was 2 away goals within the first 20 minutes. We then held them at bay until we gave away our second penalty in 2 games, which they scored from, and that made the score 2-1, and that was at full time, which isn't a bad score. Going into a second leg at home, obviously I would have preferred it to be 2-0, but can't really complain. Next game was against Rangers. Dooley Johnson scored on 59 minutes to make up for Georgios Konstanti's penalty miss, and we held Rangers at bay, getting the 3 points from that game. We then lost 1-0 to Celtic. Moving on. Then came our second leg in the UEFA Cup, second qualifying round. Managed to win 2-0 against this Bosnian outfit, and that put us through 4-1 on aggregate. Jason Scotland scored on 11 minutes, and then he netted his second and our second of the game, fourth of the tie, with about 22 minutes to go. That gave us the win, puts through to the next round, the first round proper of the UEFA Cup, and then it was back to league duty and back to failing. Yeah, this was, I can't remember this game much, I did it yesterday. Graham Holmes scored from them early, but then Andrew Davies equalised for us. Judging by the stats, we should have won. They scored with their only shot on target. Again, if only we'd won this game, we would have won the league. It's what ifs, you know what I mean? Moving on. So a draw and then a 4-1 win against Cali, which was very, very good. Sean Thornton scored our opener. Jason Scotland then got a goal. Andrew Davies netted his second in 2 games, which was pretty good. And Jason Scotland made it, he scored our 4th goal. Lee Wilkie did pull one back for them when the score was 3-0 to us, but we managed to beat Cali away, which was good. Moving on, so 3 points there, very important 3 points. We were back in the UEFA Cup, this time against Legia. It's a Polish team, sorry if I can't pronounce it. This was the first round proper. If we won this tie, we got through to the group stage, which would have been unbelievable. And we put ourselves in a good place. 2-0 win at home, as I said. And Nielsen scored our first goal on 23 minutes. Then after half-time, Ryan Stevenson scored on 50 minutes, and they had a player sent off in the final minute of the game, which actually was a bit of a boost to us because that meant he was ruled out for the next game. My opinion of the quality of these teams, the Bosnian team that we beat in the second qualifying round, yeah, I think we were probably better than them on balance, so and that reflected in our dominant performances and the 2 wins we got over the 2 legs. This team was bit harder. If they were better than us, it wasn't by much. Anyway, we won 2-0. That was a home leg, so we stopped them from scoring away, which was good. Oh, we had a 1-0 defeat against Aberdeen. A penalty as well. Moving on, we then lost again. 3-0 to Partick. We actually performed pretty badly at the start of the season. If only we'd started better. Partick were the newly promoted team, and they absolutely flattened us. Like, we got absolutely outplayed. No excuses. But it's all good, because we're back to Europe, and we got through to the next round. Now, this was the part where, as I said, if they were better than us, it wasn't by much. They dominated the first half. They missed a penalty. They then scored a couple minutes later, as you can see by the shots. Well, they did have more than us, but they didn't absolutely dominate. Thankfully, Jason Scotland scored with 20 minutes remaining to get us an away goal and to put the tie beyond doubt. And this was at a point where they were really pressurising us, and if they'd scored again and we'd failed to score, it would have gone to extra time. But it's all good because we got to the group stages of the UEFA Cup, which was very good. Who was in our group again? Our group was Dortmund, Chievo from Italy, Everton from England, and who was the 4th team? Dnipro, who we played a few years ago in the UEFA Cup, who destroyed us in our first ever European game on this save. Out for revenge there, hopefully. 1-0 win over Dunfermline. Jason Scotland scored. Bog standard win. Not much really to say about that. Next up was a game against Hearts, and we flattened them 4-0. Sean Thornton. Oh, look at this. All the scoring took place in the final quarter of the game, so it was 0-0 until Sean Thornton scored on 68 minutes. Jason Scotland scored the second a few minutes later, and then a few minutes after that, William McLaren scored, and then with a minute to go, Martin Klein scored his first goal for the team. Moving on, our next game was in Europe again. This was the first of our group stage games, and it came against Borussia Dortmund. I mean, with all due respect, when you come up against players as good as Robinho, you know you're going to be in for a tough time. To be honest, I'm surprised it was only 3-0. They kind of took their foot off the gas in the final in the second half. We got 2 shots, but it was a classic. They scored 3 quick goals, And then in the second half, we got no highlights whatsoever because they just kept the ball. For those that don't know how the UEFA Cup used to work, you only played all the teams. There was 5 teams in each group, and you only played each of the teams once. So this was the only time we were going to play Borussia Dortmund, and we lost 3-0. Bit disappointing. Also, the first round proper isn't actually a qualifying round. The first round proper, as you can probably tell, is a knockout round. After the group stage, it works pretty much the same as the Europa League in the sense that there's a last 32, last 16, quarter-final, semi-final, final. Worst performance of the season. Eclipsed the Partick Thistle for ineptitude, really. Marlon Harwood, who's not even good on this game, got a hat-trick, and Scott Wilson got sent off when the score was only 2-0. I think I'd made all 3 subs by that point, so I had 3 strikers, so I ended up playing a 5-2-3, and that's what costed us 3 of the goals. So kind of my fault. This was almost a calamity. Andrew Johnson scored for Kilmarnock, who actually finished like second bottom. Thankfully, Jason Scotland scored with 7 minutes to go to equalise for us and get us a point. They might have been bottom at this point. I'll show you our league positions actually, like the change. As you can see, at the start of the season, we weren't doing that well. Part of my thinking behind that is because I had to keep changing my team. Well, I didn't have to keep changing my team, but I chose to change my team. Well, I had the UEFA Cup games. I then obviously had to deal with the League Cup when that came around, and I had the league, so that was 3 competitions I was in. I wanted my players to be not just in good condition, but I wanted to preserve the morale. I made sure my morale was good for the UEFA Cup because I wanted to do well in that. I would often play players with less good morale in the league games, which probably costed us the league in the end, but as you can tell, at the start of the season, we were not... Look, we're even down at 11th at points. And we actually went top once over here, but it doesn't show anyone to be top of the league on this week because we went top and then Aberdeen went back top. But anyway, moving on. 1-1 draw against Kilmarnock, not bad. Next, we're back in Europe, I believe. Yep, against Chievo. I think that's how you pronounce it. If not, I do apologise. We should have won this game. They scored early. Well, they scored in 20 minutes. Sean Thornton equalised for us. But we actually did okay. We didn't outdo them, but we could have scored again. I think a draw was a fair result. So they were a good team in the end. So to get a point was pretty good. It was at home as well. I think they were playing for like deeper than they would. Anyway, back to league duty, and what a game. What a game. 0-0 against Hibs. Again, near misses. If we'd won that game, we would have won the title. Here we go, the League Cup. I need to give a bit of background to this game. So, as you can see, we beat East Stirling, but it wasn't that simple. You see, in the second round of the League Cup, East Stirling, who are the bottom tier of the professional system, they finished 7th. They'd beaten Dunfermline 3-2, Dunfermline, who are in the top division, the top tier of the professional system. We got drawn against them, and I'd realised they'd beaten Dunfermline, who admittedly were near the bottom of the league at that point. So I decided to play. We were away from home, so I thought, right, I'll play a slightly more defensive formation, and that didn't really work because they scored in 29 minutes. It put me into panic mode because I thought, wow, this game really is bugged. Like, look at this. Look at their players. They barely have very many good stats. The point is, we should be beating them easily, and I thought, this game, it must be bugged if I lose in the third round yet again. Either that or my players are just blooming complacent. I mean, they went from holding Chievo in the UEFA Cup to losing to East Stirlingshire in the League Cup, but whatever. Anyway, Jason Scotland scored in 40 minutes, and I think I must have probably pushed a few men forward, and Dooley Johnson netted the second with 20 minutes to go, and then Zoltan Kiss made sure of the victory on 88 minutes. Finally broke our League Cup hoodoo. We got past the third round for the first time in this save, so that was good. Next, back to league duty. 1-1 draw with Rangers. Pretty disappointing that we conceded with 12 minutes to go, but Dooley Johnson scored our goal. I mean, a point at Ibrox is probably on balance a good result, even if Rangers did finish 4th. Next up was Dnipro. Oh, this was a game we should have won. They beat us 3-0 away from home last time we played them away from home. But as you can see, I mean, it presents itself as being fairly even, but we had more possession, more shots. We had 5 on target. Let me guess, their keeper got man of the match. If we'd won that game, it would have been amazing. But we drew. Second point of our group stage journey in the UEFA Cup. Yeah, kind of disappointing. Anyway, moving on. Celtic 2-2. Not bad given the fact that we scored. Dooley Johnson opened the scoring just after half time. And then Craig Bellamy, Stephen Pearson put Celtic 2-1 up. But Dooley Johnson managed to net a late equaliser on 84 minutes, so that was good. Managed to salvage a point from that game. Next up was a game against Everton. Yeah, I hate to say it, this was our final UEFA Cup game. We had to win this to have any chance of progress into the next round because we only had 2 points. Dnipro were the only team below us, I think, in the league. And if you haven't worked out, because there's 5 teams in the group, that means there's going to be, like, every time there's a game, one of the teams is not going to play. And so I think we were the first team to finish all 4 of our games. And so the next match day would be without us. And so that would be our games over early. And then other teams would have a chance to overtake us or whatnot. So we had to win this game either way. Unfortunately, we lost. Everton were, let's just say, similar to Dortmund, they were streets ahead of us. They're streets ahead of the likes of Celtic and that. Jason Scotland scored early for us. This was the game I accidentally had Richard Kinsley in goal. That was a mistake. I subbed him out after he conceded the first goal, and then Graham Smith came in and actually did a good job, so I don't regret that really. Well, I regret misplacing him in the squad, but don't regret bringing him off for Graham Smith. But yeah, Jason Scotland got our only goal, and then Aaron Hughes scored in 37 minutes, and even if we'd drawn, it would have been enough, so Jonathan Spector just went and rubbed salt into the wounds, and as a result of that, we finished second bottom. Everton did get to the semi-finals, the quarter-final of the... I think it was the semi-finals Everton got to of the Euro Cup. Dortmund got to the second knockout round, I think. They're not bad teams. I feel like if we'd beaten Chievo somehow, and if we'd beaten Dnipro somehow, it would have been a different story. But we didn't. But still, nonetheless, I can't be too disheartened. It was nice to get to the group stage of a European competition and get those 4 games and the prize money that went with it. Prize money for drawing, not as much as it is for winning, but whatever. So yeah, we're out of the UEFA Cup now. As I said, disappointing, but I was happy to get there in the first place. Plus, we got knocked out by teams that were just far better than us. One team that is not far better than us is Livingston, and we just got completely outplayed by them. It was daylight robbery. I remember saying that to myself, daylight robbery, when Dooley Johnson scored on half time. Livingston had the better chances in the first half. We had nothing, and then Dooley Johnson went and scored, put us ahead against the run of play. They went and equalised with 90 minutes to go. Again, early moment. If we'd held out, could have been a different story. Moving on, we've got our next game, which was against Cali Thistle. This was in the League Cup quarter-final. Fairly difficult game, decided by a penalty from Jason Scotland. And so we got through to the semi-final of the League Cup, which was good. First time we've done that in this save. And then we played Cali Thistle again. Typical Cup League double-header. Both of those games were at home. This time wait a minute, did they play in a different strip in the previous game? Yeah, they must have 3 strips. Because they played in white and then they played in orange. They can't have finished their washing from the previous game. Jason Scotland, casual hat-trick. He scored on 17 minutes, he scored on 45 minutes, and he scored on 75 minutes. One of those goals won the goal of the month for December, if you remember. And then Dooley Johnson casually came and scored a double in the last 4 minutes to make the score, well, very respectable. Next league game was a 2-0 win over Partick. We got revenge for our previous loss. I'm not sure if you remember, but in the first season of this save, we actually lost 5-3 to Partick, and I'm pretty sure one of my players got a hat-trick in that game. Jason Scotland scored the first goal in this game, and Zoltan Kiss got the second, and that gave us the 3 points. Very important 3 points there, as are all 3 points. Now, I think this was our last defeat in the league. I think this was our last defeat. I don't remember, but this might have been our last defeat in the season, and it was Aberdeen who eventually won the league. Very disappointing. Not much really to say, other than if only we'd not lost that, then yeah, things would have been different. I remember actually thinking at that point, so at New Year, it was halfway stage, and I saw we'd lost 6 games, and I knew that the previous season we'd lost, I think, 7, and I thought, oh, we've already lost 6 games, previous year we lost 7, we're going to get a worse points tally, and then I thought, if only we don't lose another game. At this point, winning the league was far from my thoughts because of, well, as I said, we're like close to the bottom. Let's see where we were at this point in the season. Halfway stage, we're doing better, we're at 4th, but we were still streets behind Celtic, and like Celtic, they were so high in the league for so long, and then they just lost their way. Rangers were never top. Aberdeen were top for the latter part of the season. So yeah, winning the league, challenging for the title wasn't really in mind at this point. I didn't want to lose another game in the hope that I would still get a European spot. Did not imagine that we'd go unbeaten for the rest of the season. We beat Dunfermline away from home. Sean Thornton scored on half-time. And then Michael Mitchell, our youth player who I promoted, got his first goal for the team with a minute to go to make sure of victory. Our next game was against Dundee United. We avenged our 5-0 defeat previously in the season, and Jason Scotland got a hat-trick. He scored on 26 minutes, he scored on 30 minutes, and he scored on 35 minutes. He scored his hat-trick. It's a 9-minute hat-trick, not bad, but that gave us the 3 points there from that game. Next up was the Scottish Cup. Oh, the Scottish Cup was so annoying this season. It was very, very frustrating. 1-1 draw away to Forfar. Forfar are in the 3rd third tier of Scottish football. We scored through Ryan Stevenson on 25 minutes. I think we actually showed them a lot of respect, maybe a bit too much respect, because I was playing a fairly defensive formation. In fact, if you look at this, Georgios Costanti is playing on the left because I no left wingers for this game, so I had to drop my left winger deeper so he could play in that position. Did so badly, so I had to take him off. That was after they'd equalised through Michael Smith, so that was a very frustrating game. Obviously, because it's the Scottish Cup, it went to a replay. Thankfully, we creamed them 4-0 at our place. If we'd gone out to forfeit, that would have been so embarrassing. Dooley Johnson got the opening goal in 3 minutes, then David Loeing scored an own goal for us. Dooley Johnson and Craig Young both scored after half-time to get us a 4-0 win and send us to the 4th round. I think we actually played a weaker... Oh no, we played a 4-3-3. That's why Dooley Johnson was playing, because I wanted the victory. I couldn't sit back and defend. I had to go for the victory, which we did, and we got it. We then beat Kilmarnock 2-0. Dooley Johnson then got a double to keep up his good form. 72 minutes and 75 minutes. Willie McLaren got injured, I see. That might have been the game that basically put Ross Wallace ahead of him with regards to the pecking order of the team. We then beat Hearts 3-1. Pretty interesting game. Jason Scotland got a first half double. Their Swedish winger then netted on 76 minutes, but Michael Mitchell netted 2 minutes later to give us 3 points, to make sure of the 3 points. League Cup semi-final day, and we lost. Couldn't get to the League Cup final, I should say. Dooley Johnson netted after 9 minutes. We held the lead for about 20 minutes, and then Scott Agnew scored, and then he scored just after half time, and they held on. Bitterly disappointing, but that we fell at the final. Well, we didn't fall at the final hurdle, it was the second last hurdle, but semi-final defeats are never nice. We had to move on from that disappointment. We beat Hibs 3-2 in the league. Fairly interesting game, especially in the final few minutes. Zoltan Kiss missed a penalty, then Hibs proceeded to score a penalty, then Dooley Johnson equalised, then Zoltan Kiss, despite missing a penalty, scored a penalty, scored the second penalty he'd taken that game to put us ahead going into the interval. Then we held on for the whole second half. Michael Mitchell scored in injury time, and then they scored in injury time as well. Very bizarre game. 3-2, the 3 points is all that matters. Moving on, next up was the Scottish Cup 4th round. We played Morton, who are one division below us. They actually got relegated this season, I see. 0-0 away, 0-0 at home, I should add, which is fantastic. So I had to go to a replay, and we ended up winning 4-1. Although I see they scored a penalty after 2 minutes, which can't have been nice. We actually played a defensive formation there, as I probably wanted to keep them at bay, which obviously worked. Not. Jason Scotland equalised though after 7 minutes. Chris Burke netted his only goal of the season, I think, or one of his only goals of the season, after 21 minutes. They had a man sent off, which probably helped us quite a bit. Sean Thornton then netted our third, and Willie McLaren netted our fourth with 8 minutes to go to put us through to the quarter-final of the Scottish Cup. So now it's predominantly league games left. 2-0 win over Livingston, fairly straightforward. Ross Wallace scored on half-time, and Jesus Scotland doubled our advantage on 59 minutes. Following that, we had a 1-1 draw with Celtic. Yeah, so Jason Scotland netted on 55 minutes, and then, they went and netted a late equaliser. But it's all good, because we held Rangers to a 0-0 draw. I think we could have won this game, actually. Yeah, we could have won this game. We had more shots than them. Their keeper had a field day. 2-1 win over Cali, though, to get back into our winning run. One of our former players came back to haunt us. Jason Scott put us ahead, I should say, before half-time. And then Patrick Ogunsoto netted. He was our former player. But then Jason Scotland netted a winner on 57 minutes to get us the 3 points from that game. Following that, we had a 2-1 quarter-final, Scottish Cup quarter-final victory over Rangers. Excellent stuff. Jason Scotland netted 17 minutes, got the ball rolling. He then netted just after half time to get us a 2-goal advantage, and we held out until the 86th minute when Zurowski scored a penalty, but we held on to go through to the last 4. Our second quarter-final, semi-final I should say, of such an interesting season. Next up, Partick. This was positively an easy game. One of the 2 easiest games of the season. 2-0 up inside 10 minutes. Ross Wallace got a double. Pretty good double at that. Jason Scotland then netted just after the 20-minute mark to put us 3 goals up. Kirk Broadfoot netted his first goal for the club, I think, on 28 minutes. And then this guy, our Algerian midfielder, got a goal on 40 minutes. So we're 5-0 up at half-time, and basically nothing happened in the second half because Partick weren't pushing forward, we weren't pushing forward. I'll take it, 5-0 victory. Big game of the season, big game. We beat Aberdeen, who were league leaders. Jason Scotland put himself in my good books by scoring the opening goal on 13 minutes. He then put himself in my bad books by missing a penalty, but it was all good because Zoltan Kes atoned for his error by doubling our advantage. Jason Scotland then got injured just after half time, although it didn't come to anything, thankfully. And then Chris Clark netted on 90 minutes, but it was too little too late as we clawed back the gap on Aberdeen. At this point, we were vying with Aberdeen and Celtic and Rangers for top spots. You can see at this point here, we're kind of like, we're fourth, then we go third. So we're kind of working our way up. We're probably, I would guess, third at this point, and Celtic and Aberdeen were the two teams ahead of us. We beat Dunfermline 2-0. Fantastic. Jason Scotland got 2 goals on 11 minutes and 22 minutes. Next up was a 2-0 win over Dundee United. Very important 3 points. Another Jason Scotland double, this time in the second half on 57 minutes and on 64 minutes. Again, we're doing very, very well. That's 3 clean sheets out of 4. Not bad. Unfortunately, yeah, this was, along with the Dundee United 5-0 loss at the start of the season, this was our worst performance of the game. The only saving grace, and it's not even a saving grace, but the only saving grace was it was in the Scottish Cup and not the league. If it had been in the league, our goal difference would have been in jeopardy, and Jason Scotland's top goal scorer position would have been in jeopardy because Derek Young came second, I believe. Anyway, he netted 4 goals. The first 3 goals were just utter trash. The final one I take responsibility for because I was chasing the game. But anyway, whatever. We lost 4-0. We're out of our second National Cup in the semi-final. Fantastic. That's actually what happened to us about, I think, 12 years ago. We lost in 2 National Cup semi-finals and lost the league by a single point. It's funny how that happens. Funny how what goes around comes around. Anyway, whatever. Oh, good though. We beat Kilmarnock 2-0. We're out of all the cups. We're just focused on the league. At this point, I'm pushing to win it. Well, at first I was pushing to finish second, but then I realised Aberdeen were so close that we could push to win the league. We beat Kilmarnock 2-0. Sean Thornton scored on 37 minutes. Dooley Johnson scored on 84 minutes to make sure of victory. Along with a 5-0 win over Partick Thistle, this was one of the easiest games of the season. They were bottom. They weren't going down. Partick went down, but it was just super easy. They got 1 shot on goal this whole time. This Hearts game was a bit more difficult. Actually, not really. Sean Thornton scored on 7 minutes. He then netted just after the half-hour mark, and then Jason Scotland scored our 3rd. Then it was time for the split. Post-split games. First one wasn't so good. 0-0 draw with Aberdeen. We should have won. No, I don't think so. We didn't really create enough chances to win, did we? We only got 4 chances, and even then, only 1 of them was on target. Andrew Davies did us no favours by getting sent off in the final, with 12 minutes to go. Aberdeen piled on the pressure. I'm surprised they only got 1 shot, but anyway, we held out for the final 12 minutes and managed to salvage a draw from that game. Next game, this is a nightmare. I hate showing off games like this. This was a nightmare. Although I'm disappointed with the overall league not the league performance, but the final league position. We're 1 point off the title. Although I'm disappointed about that, in games like this, my players really showed what they were made of. They really proved how good they were. And I know we were 2-0 up and we lost 2 goals. But you got to remember, this is Celtic. Even though Celtic finished 3rd, even though they finished 8 points behind us, they aren't a bad team, if you know what I mean. You don't just become a bad team overnight. We went 2-0 up. Martin Klein scored in 30 minutes. Jason Scotland scored after half-time. 2-0 up, looking good. This guy, Donadel, whatever his name is, he scored in 58 minutes. Then Stephen Brennan did us no favours by getting sent off. And in that final 15 minutes, there was so many highlights. But our players held out for so long until 2 minutes to go. If we'd won that game, we would have won the title. If we'd held out for those 2 minutes, we would have won the title. No problem. But that's Football Manager for you. So, at this point, I was 4 points behind Aberdeen. Things were looking pretty bleak. We managed to claw our way back. Ed Nielsen scored the opening goal away to Dunfermline. Mark Gilhaney then equalised 10 minutes later. But Jason Scotland netted on half-time to put us ahead. And then Dooley Johnson made sure of victory late on in the game. And Aberdeen drew their game against Cali, which put us, I think, just a point behind them again. We had a 3-1 win over Rangers. This was very important. We had to keep our momentum going. We scored 3 goals, 2 in the first 10 minutes, and Nielsen scored again to keep up his good scoring form. Then Jason Scotland scored on 8 minutes. Ross Wallace netted on 70 minutes. There was really not much else to be done. Scott Severin scored a free kick, but apart from that, we got the 3 points. And then it was down to the final game of the season. And you all know the result already. Aberdeen were 1 point ahead of us. We were 1 point behind. If Aberdeen won, they won the league. If we won and Aberdeen drew or lost, we won the league. We did our job. I think I would have been more disappointed if we lost and Aberdeen had lost. I'm happy we won. And we won well. Inverness were on top for the first half, but Jason Scotland scored against the run of play on 35 minutes. Ross Wallace then doubled our advantage after half time, and then Jason Scotland added a 3rd. on 72 minutes. But unfortunately, no drama without tragedy. Aberdeen also won their game against Celtic. I've not looked at when they scored their goals. Yeah, okay, they scored pretty early on. A lot of football managers like looking at other scores to see how things are going. But that's something I never do. I never look at other scores because I want to focus on my own team and then worry about the other scores afterwards. So even if I had looked at, if I'd looked at the score at half-time, it would have been 3-0 Aberdeen and I would probably, my head would have just gone. But there you go. So, end of the season, not great. We scored the same amount of goals as Aberdeen. If only we'd conceded 4 fewer goals, we would have won the league. Unless the 4 fewer goals we would have conceded was against Dundee United in that 5-0 drubbing, in which case that would have made no difference whatsoever. But the point is, we were really, 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 really close to winning the league. Closer than ever. And it's a case of, will it ever happen? It might. It's possible. It's close. We had a really, really good run of form at the back end of the season. We didn't lose at all in the second half of the season in 2011. We're just going to have to keep trying. And again, I just want to reiterate, look how many teams have come up from the first division and then go back down again. You know, there's Partick, they went down first season. Airdrie United went down first season. Motherwell went down first season. Falkirk went down first season. But we've managed to stay in the league. This is our 6th season in the top league and we got Champions League football. That's an achievement in and of itself. So overall, the season, again, as I said, no drama without tragedy. We lost out in 2 National Cup semi-finals. We got to the UEFA Cup group stage and lost in that. And then we lost the league by a single point. So overall, it was a successful season. We just couldn't make it over the line. If only a few games had gone in our favour. But anyway, as heartbreaking as it was to lose out in 2 National Cup semi-finals and to lose the league by a single point, it was a lot of fun, especially these latter games, because I didn't have to worry about Europe. Although I wish I had been in Europe at that part of the season, but I didn't have to worry about Europe and I could just focus on keeping the squad fit. So that is the end of the season. One thing I need to say before I forgot, I almost forgot, but if you have a look here, Europe awards. This was last season, I should say. So this was 2009-2010. Look who won the European Golden Boot. I've got screenshots here. I'll show you the screenshots of the news item. Interesting. I thought the way the European Golden Boot works is if you play in a harder league, you get 2 points per goal. If you play in Spain, England, Italy, Germany, you're going to get 2 points per goal. If you play in a really, really small league, like say the Scottish 3rd Division, you're going to get 1 point per goal. So you could in theory win the European Golden Boot in the Scottish 3rd Division, you would just need to score a ton of goals. The Scottish Premier League is either 1 goal or 1.5 goals. If you play in a league like in the middle, you only get 1.5 points per goal. I'm not sure if the Scottish Premier League is like a 1.5 goal league or a 1 goal league, but either way, I don't think they use those rules here. And we can do the maths, give me a second. So they might use those point systems because Jason Scotland would have ended up with 57 points from his goals tally, whereas the Real Sociedad striker would have ended up with 56. So either way, whether they use the point system or not, Jason Scotland won the European Golden Boot, which is quite fantastic. I'm not sure if there's anything else to be said other than this could be the last time that you see this team. This is the last time this team has been together. This is the 7th season in this Football Manager save. It's one of the longest games I've had, actually. I think I maybe only had 1 or 2 games that went longer than this. But yeah, over the 7 years, I've been working to build a squad to do as well as possible. And this was the team that came within 1 point of the league title, got to 2 National Cup semi-finals, and got to the group stages of the UEFA Cup. It's still a good squad. Loads of good players in here. I know they're just virtual players. I know they're just, it's just a computer game, but it still means something when they've been playing for a team that you've managed and, they've done so well on that. So one thing that's not moving is, or one person that's not moving is Brian Laudrup. He is contracted here for another 5 years. I should say though, some Premiership teams came and poached my scouts. So I actually lost a few scouts, which was a bit disappointing. No idea which players will stay, which will go. We shall see. Until next time, thank you for watching. I will see you when I see you.